excited to share a bit about our project with everyone. If you're new, we'll just go through a bit on who Liberty Finance is and what it is that we're doing. And more specifically, we're going to talk around the DAO and our ideas for that, as well as the yield generation process that we are putting together. As well as we'll sort of end it off with just a bit of an update on what we've been up to, where things are at, just share a bit of sort of tidbits with you guys in terms of what we've been doing. So I think without further ado, let me see if I can get this presentation to run, and we can then really just get it kicked off and started. So really just to introduce Liberty Finance, we are the world's first Sharia-approved decentralized exchange. And whilst to some people it might sound like a very specific targeted platform, for us really it's more about being inclusive rather than exclusive. There's a large untapped market of individuals that are unable to take advantage of DeFi to its fullest capacity, because they're excluded because it doesn't support their requirements. And for us, being inclusive really is a key factor to what we're doing. And it's quite interesting in that, it's not just about being inclusive, but once we start to align to the ethical principles of ethical finance or of Sharia finance, it really just lines up nicely with what we believe, DeFi should stand for and what the space would stand for. So it just really sort of hits to the heart and core of the team and really what our focus is. I think another sort of aspect about Liberty Finance is we are a solution built by traders for traders. The team behind Liberty Finance has had many years in trading, in crypto, and our experience in the space with using multiple protocols and multiple platforms is really being brought to what we're creating to ensure that we can bring the best of both worlds. And by both worlds, really our focus is that custody should not be centralized, that you should not have to give up your custody for the sake of convenience. Meaning that, just because an exchange has faster execution times or some really cool features, it doesn't mean that you need to then put your crypto onto that exchange and lose all sort of power or control over it. And I think really that saying goes, not your keys, not your crypto, really stands true. And for us, that is sort of a big driving point. So by building the solutions that we're building, we're really taking cognizance of what works really well in a centralized space and bringing that through to our decentralized platform. And I think really the last sort of key aspect to what Liberty Finance is around is about unlocking financial freedom. And I think for us, as we've embarked along this journey, financial freedom is not just about being able to trade cryptocurrencies. It's being able to have the opportunity and the ability to do with what you want to do with your funds, with your investments, and to have that control. And that's the control really that DeFi gives you. And by making it inclusive, we're opening up a whole market of DeFi opportunities for everybody. I'm really excited about that. So why at this specific point, why at this specific juncture are we doing this? Well, I think really when we start to look at, one of our core focuses, which is the Islamic finance industry, as of 2019, there was $3.75 trillion under management within the Islamic finance space. And this is expected to reach 5.5 trillion by 2025. And really by approximating these numbers with the traditional markets or the Western markets and the last crypto cycles and the current cycles that we're seeing, we really are looking at an approximate potential market around 320 billion, which is a serviceable market around 9.6 billion. This is really a huge untapped market that very few protocols and projects are addressing and are really looking to work with to access that TVL and to assist those individuals with being able to experience the full sort of breadth and depth of what DeFi has to offer. One of the other sort of big things is that within the traditional Islamic financial institutional space, there are still many, many inefficiencies. And even in typical banks, we find a lot of inefficiencies. But this rings even harder and even truer in traditional Islamic finance protocols or finance banking systems. And really, what we've seen is an opportunity to bring a technology into the space, which can create more efficiencies, we can create more seamless experiences, and ultimately allow the space to scale at the rate that it's aimed at scaling and probably beyond that. over the next couple of years. And I think maybe the last sort of piece right now is that as we're seeing sort of an upturn in the crypto market, and as we're starting to see more interest again coming in, we're still sort of plagued by the major challenge of DeFi and of decentralized exchanges, which is your customer experience. They're already really hard to onboard. There is a large learning curve for a lot of people to actually get involved in the space. And for us, our focus is on this customer experience and on this user experience to really work with Web2 individuals and bring them into a Web3 space. And I think really we're leveraging a lot of our experiences, my personal experience in Web2, in terms of solutions that I've built, which we scaled to millions of users, is understanding how do we bring that capability to Web3, so we can make it even more inclusive and more accessible to everyone. So I think really at a sort of high level profile, what is our DeFi solution looking like? Well, really it's made up into three sort of primary pillars. The first really being is that it's a decentralized trading exchange. And for us, it's not just a DEX with simple swaps. For us, we're really making sure that we include a host of features that you'd come to expect from a trading exchange. And this really includes things like portfolio management, position management, the ability to set stop losses and limit orders. And unlike a number of other protocols that exist out there, our limit order protocol and our stop loss and our trading stop loss protocols actually make use of AMMs. So we're not, converting crypto into another sort of form of perpetually based asset on our protocol, but rather they're making use of the AMM itself that exists on the DEX to initiate those sort of orders, and really excited about bringing that to market. And I think one of the other sort of pieces is asset due diligence. Being a Sharia compliant exchange, all our assets undergo stringent sort of testing and checking for a number of things to ensure that they're aligned to the ethical principles of Islamic finance. And these will be clearly demarcated for our users. And I think this is also a really, really great feature, is that when you come onto the platform and you see a potential project that maybe you want to trade, you'll be able to see the due diligence that was done on that project. And due diligence would be things like, is it a real product? Where's their source of income coming from? And a host of other metrics. And really by seeing that, you can make a very informed sort of decision about what you want to trade and how you want to trade it. The second sort of pillar to our sort of DeFi solution is a marketplace, and specifically focused and geared towards lending solutions, and very interesting enough, geared towards Islamic lending solutions in the DeFi space. And really it was throughout this journey that we've taken in terms of building out these protocols, which led us to unlocking this potential of TradeFi, which I'll get into a moment. But one of the key sort of aspects of our solution is going to be this lending protocol, or as we sort of like to sort of codename it, an Aave alternative for Islamic finance. Some of the other aspects on our marketplace will be single-sided staking, as well as looking at stablecoin-based staking and rewards. And specifically on our single-sided staking, we'll also get into that tonight. We start talking about the AMANA vaults, and how that revenue share is going to look like and how it's going to work. And I think maybe the final sort of pillar or component to the DeFi solution is our education hub and our community. We've got a big focus in what we're doing on consumer education. Both myself and Chris, also a co-founder, are very passionate about education. I'm very passionate about ed tech and education technology. And we really want to make sure that we create a solution and create a way for people to get all the information that they need to unlock, features of the tool based on education that they've done or courses that they pass. And ultimately just help individuals become more successful on the platform, because the more people are able to trade effectively and utilize the protocol effectively, the more fees that they will generate, the more benefit that will give back to the DAO, the more benefit will give back to the LP pool stakers, and ultimately more benefit to the industry. There's also a big focus on Islamic finance education. I think both people that are of the Islamic faith and people that are not could benefit from this. There's a lot of uncertainty. And working with our expert teams and experts in the space, we'll be developing a lot of content around Islamic finance, and specifically Islamic finance and DeFi, and Islamic finance and crypto. And then the big thing is really focusing on building a strong trading community, and really just like-minded individuals with the same goals and focuses working together, that really help one become sort of successful when it comes to trading and when it comes to investing. So I spoke a little bit around the Islamic lending on the DeFi space. And really what this did is it unlocked an opportunity for us where we noted that in the traditional banking world, or the traditional sort of Islamic financing world, there are massive inefficiencies. And these inefficiencies really presented a great opportunity for LibFi in that we could take the protocol that we've developed for DeFi and we could make it work for TradeFi. And this is really, really exciting. So this has sort of brought about the introduction of what we're terming Islamic financing as a service. And what Islamic financing as a service is, it's a private chain technology that allows to perform a commodity murabaha or a deferred commodity purchase lending protocol, which is very commonly used in the Islamic finance space. And what our engine actually now allows us to achieve is we're able to reduce a typical murabaha transaction, which can take anything from 30 minutes to 72 hours to complete. We can reduce that right down to a couple of minutes. And by putting this into place, we're going after a $2.7 trillion sort of industry that's currently utilizing these very efficient or very sort of, I almost want to say, late 80s, early 90s protocols, where you've got to phone up the commodity broker and say, I've got a potential deal that I want to do. Do you have X commodity in certain quantity? And can you guarantee a price for a certain period? And then they've got to sort of broker a deal with these commodity exchanges. And that can really just take a long time. It's kind of similar to the 1980s sort of Wall Street, where you had to phone the stock room and kind of place your order and then wait for that to get filled. So it is largely inefficient. And because it's so inefficient, it really makes it quite difficult for Islamic banks to compete with your normal banking sector. The ability to provide lending and finance at scale, or to provide smaller amounts of finance, lower financial amounts, also becomes quite difficult. And really, we aim to solve a lot of these challenges. The other side of it is that, by introducing this Islamic financing as a service, we can use the same engine to facilitate a form of margin trading that will enable potential investors to make use of financing when it comes to specific trades that they want to enter into. And there's probably a lot more detail that we can go into on that. We spent a lot of time and effort and thought into that process in terms of how it would work and ensuring that it can remain compliant. But what's exciting for us is it unlocks a whole new world of trading possibilities for a largely untapped market. So we've been talking about the market. I've sort of mentioned some sort of high-level numbers. I think maybe it's important to sort of break it down into the specifics in terms of where it's at. And when we look at the market opportunity, we look at two sort of spheres of what LibFi is approaching. One being TradeFi, which is your traditional Islamic finances, and the other being DeFi, which is the DeFi market that we know, with specifically being focused on inclusivity to Islamic investors. And when we look at that from a TradeFi perspective, we ultimately land at a serviceable attainable market of around $14.1 billion. And from a DeFi perspective, it's about $1.6 billion. This is a massive market. And when we're looking at the market, we're looking at a very, very, very small percentage of the actual overall attainable market. So from our projection perspective and what we're looking at, we really have sort of focused on the lowest possible to set ourselves up for the most success. We're not being audacious out there and say, well, we're going to capture the entire market and we're going to take 20% of that market in the first year. We're talking less than 1%, of the markets itself. And we believe that we're able to achieve that. And a lot of the discussions and a lot of the POCs that we're launching in March are leading us into that direction in terms of being able to achieve that serviceable market really, really, really soon. So when we look at that, we kind of look at what we're able to achieve. We were then able to then deduce from that some sort of revenue projections for the protocol. And I think this is quite close to me because a lot of people have told me, through this journey that, our focus should be on building hype and our focus should be on, getting ourselves out there. Our focus should be on just launching the project and sort of getting it done as soon as possible and then hype people around it. And I'm very averse to that. I believe that for me, we want to build a real product that generates real revenue, that has real sustainability, not just something that's hyped. While the going is good. And when the going is not so good, we see a drawdown of 99% on the valuation of the project. And because of that, it really means that, we want to make sure that what we do and what we create generates something real, something that's tangible. And something that's also tangible outside of just the value that a project typically has within its own little ecosystem. We want to bring real value in from, externally from the work that we're doing in TradeFi. So I think maybe just to run through the numbers, in terms of sort of what we're looking at, I think it's sort of two spheres. We're looking primarily at the commodity lending engine that we're providing, as well as then, the overall sort of DEX performance and what the DEX is able to achieve. And what's quite interesting is when we look at the Islamic banking sector, I mean, one of the banks that we're engaging with, they're doing pretty much the volumes that we want to achieve in terms of Q1. They're doing that just over a week or every second week in terms of their lending volume that they're providing, or their financing volume using the commodity Murabbaha. So we're really confident that we're able to sort of hit these specific projections. And really what it outlines and where we get to is that very quickly we'll be starting to generate a fair amount of revenue that will be paid back as a royalty to the DAO itself. So the whole ultimate goal here is, as a DAO, we're building really amazing protocols and technologies for Islamic finance. The commodity Murabbaha or commodity deferred lending engine is the first of many. There'll be a peer-to-peer lending engine. There will be a host of other potential products that we can develop under this DAO together that ultimately would allow us to enable this technology out to finances and out to pretty much anyone in the space that wants to make use of it, and obviously for a fee. And those fees then get generated and pulled back to us and to the DAO and the DAO protocol itself. So when we look at our DAO, what are we specifically sort of engaging on? Well, at initial launch, our DAO proposals will focus initially on finalizing a lot of the specifics of the DAO mechanics. And while these will sort of be detailed really to the community in the coming sort of weeks, at a high level, our primary focus is going to be that a big sort of emphasis on Sharia compliance. Being a DAO, we need to ensure that there's no risk associated with the DAO potentially voting against something or for something that would affect our overall compliance from an Islamic finance perspective. But really, we'll be looking at proposals around strategies, how we can counteract things like flash loans, harmful proposals, those sort of things. I think we're kind of looking at it from a point of, proposals themselves will be approved by a multi-sig Sharia board before being allocated. We'll also be focusing on things like the DAO treasury focus, how the decision-making engines will work, how the voting mechanisms will work, the ability to delegate your voting. And really, there'll be a lot more of this in place. I think really at launch, from a DAO perspective, a lot of the stuff will have been conceived, and we're working quite closely with our advisors and the Sharia team to sort of come up with the best sort of framework for this. And we'll definitely share that framework with you guys to sort of give us some feedback and thoughts on what you think before it's set in stone. But then ultimately, once the DAO is launched, it will be up to the DAO to continue the work and for proposals to be created and voted on and to sort of drive us forward as we embark into the future. So from a DAO perspective, having a DAO would allow us to then allow token holders to stake into AMANA vaults. And this is really where we sort of bring it all sort of full circle. How do you maintain the usability and utility of your token? If your token is just a hype token, it's only as good as the value that people place on it in terms of perception. But if your token has real world utility and real world value, that's where I believe it has that longevity and that staying power. And for us, the AMANA vaults is our key to unlocking that. So our vision really is to reward everybody that holds LibFi with revenue and proceeds that are generated by the protocol. And for us, that becomes really, really, really key. So what it allows us to do is incentivize LibFi holders to stake their LibFi into the vaults. And by staking into the vaults, you would then receive a proportional share of the revenue that the DAO receives from all our TradeFi and trading or exchange-based fees that we receive directly to yourself. And those fees will be received in real yield. So we're not going to, for example, pay you in more currency or in something completely different. Those fees will be paid out in real yield. So if the DAOs are earning USD, you'll get paid out in USD. And you can kind of almost think about it in a sense as almost like a dividend sort of protocol. And as we grow and as we start taking on more TradeFi business and as our decentralized exchange grows, the value of actually being in those vaults would grow a lot as well. And ultimately that will drive the overall value of the project up and the overall value of holding the token up. And we're really excited about that. And really excited as the sort of potential that this can sort of unlock, going into the future. So I think I want to pause there for a second, and just sort of maybe switch to just some updates on the project. I think I just really wanted to sort of take us through that. But maybe before I jump into updates, I'm hearing like a lot of pings on Discord, but I'm not able to see the chat. So I'm going to just switch screens. I don't know if there are any questions, but I'm actually going to open it up for a few questions now, kind of talk through what we've gone over. And then we can sort of end off with just some updates of where we're at, and some of the things are up and coming over the next week or two. Because I'm trying to see where did the chat questions actually land up in, or I don't know if we can actually open them up on the actual AMA itself. That's actually a great question. We have been in long discussions with, I'm going to mention it out there, with the guys over at Islamic Coin. They really love the work that we're doing. They really love what we're doing as a potential for the Hawk network. But we're still trying to work it out. I think one of the biggest challenges right now at this point is we had a bit of an impasse, because they really want us to be exclusive on Hawk network. But really our mandate is to get exposure, and we took that decision last year to move to Arbitrum. And really we want to follow through on that, and we are so close to launching on Arbitrum with our testnet, with all the changes that we've had to do to support the chain and the changes we had to do to sort of improve a lot of the stuff that we had, that it just doesn't make sense to do anything right now. So we've got a memorandum of understanding signed. We're in agreement that we want to work together. But ultimately, until we can figure out a more effective way to engage, we will sort of announce that, as soon as that's ready. I think because this is being recorded, I'm going to hop across into the updates and just sort of share a couple of updates as to where things are at, and how we're basically doing. I'm sure you guys have all noticed quite a bit of activity, and I'm going to just hop across back to that. And yeah, feel free to still drop your questions in the chat. We can have a look at those as they're coming through. So I think maybe the first and biggest one is our migration is almost completed. And I know that initially we had said that we were close to launching the testnet. Technically, we discovered quite a big, massive issue with our code base. And it had to do with the way numbers are processed on the previous chain versus the current chain. To put it very rudimentally, there's probably a much better technical way of explaining it, but in a nutshell, it required a complete overhaul of a lot of things, which we're very close to getting done. So that is really exciting. I think Arbitrum runs really, really well. I've been testing it out and we've been playing around with it. So excited about that. But definitely look out for it. And I think the moment we launch Arbitrum testnet, we can then go full force with our Mawiba incentive program, which is really geared towards driving people into testnet, as well as then driving people into the communities. And so really be looking out for that. And I think we were trialing out, Task On as a platform. We've been trialing out Queston. We've also been looking to sort of build some backend API services to sort of track people's utilization. So it's all kind of sort of lining up, and we're quite excited to get going with that. We just need that testnet to launch. We just need it to be as seamless as possible. And once that's done and once that's ready, we can then go full gear into sort of pushing the testnet itself. In terms of DAO, our formation has been completed. We have established the DAO in Wyoming. It's also really exciting for that, people that have gotten involved in the project early, or people that are involved in the project early or want to get involved in the project, having a proper DAO structure in place really is a sensible move, both from a compliance perspective, but also just from the fact of what we're trying to achieve as a protocol. The TradeFi team or business team has been established, and our initial point or proof of concept projects are actually kicking off in March. We've got a great finance project that's about to kick off. That's actually going to generate a little bit of yield already for the DAO, which we're really excited about. I think that's us sort of wearing our Web2 sort of B2B sort of focus, generating that business, let's call it outside of the chain, to make use of the protocol and obviously bring that revenue back to us. And we've had some really great social community growth, since the last update. I think it's up almost 600%, and really excited about that. And then lastly, we're also then opening up private round investments into what we're doing. If anyone is interested in that, you can reach out to us on the email address hello@livefi.io. And we don't anticipate that round staying open for too long, because we really want to move quite quickly into the public sale and ultimately launching our token, so that we can then really start to reap the benefits of what we started to create. So I think I'm going to sort of end it there. And now I pause for some questions on the initial part of the presentation. So I'm happy for us to ask any other questions. So I see that there's we did launch a new website. There is actually an update to that. We're trying to launch that under the radar. We don't want to make a big thing about it. We really want to just come out with the new site. So I think just look out for that when it does arrive. We'll make a little bit of a song and a dance about it. But I think for us, really, it's around being in the trenches, focusing on getting this testnet right, as well as focusing on building the relationships and the networks that we need to drive the TradeFi business of what we're doing. I think that's pretty cool. Chris, anything from your side, man? I see your side here.
No, not here. I've been looking on the other social channels. People are mostly quiet, so I guess there's no other questions.
Fantastic. Yeah, guys. I think also timing. So we will obviously share the link to the live on YouTube, so you'll be able to catch it there. And yeah, just really feel free to drop us questions in the main channels. If you don't like Discord and you want to use Telegram, drop us a message on Telegram. Send me a DM on Telegram. I'm always happy to chat, and very, very keen to hear your thoughts and ideas. And yeah, thanks for tuning in.